Hello friends and welcome to the mostly completed flip through for my 2026 reading journal. This year, honestly, I tried a lot of things and I feel like I really kind of figured out my preferred bullet journaling style, and that leans a little bit more scrapbooky. However, this is definitely my favorite reading journal I have ever done. So with the exception of the final last little touches to my December spread, this bullet journal is done. So without further ado, let's get into the flip through. If you missed the setup for this bullet journal, I will link that video below, and then I'll give you a little bit more details about not only the journal, but where some of these stickers are from, all the good stuff. But number one, we have to talk about the cover of this. This is probably one of the most fun covers I think I've had. However, the stickers did start to peel up a little bit, but that's just because this is a very chunky journal and this cover is quite rounded, we can say. So I did just take a glue stick and glue like the tail of this dragon back down. And overall, I'm not too mad at the structural integrity of this journal as the year has gone on. I feel like the spine is still in pretty good shape considering how absolutely chunky this girl got. I also would like to slightly comment on the fact that how many pages I have left in this journal. It's actually pretty satisfying. All right, now getting into this bad boy here. I did make the cover page for this journal my channel banner, which I think is kind of fun because if I do ever change this up, I'll kind of have the record printed out in here somewhere. Then we get into some of the index pages. I have not filled this out yet, though I will at the very end of the year, I think. Then we have my vision board. I think this came out so cute. This was the very first year that I ever did a vision board, and I think it was just fun to look back. Now being at the end of the year, seeing some of these little prophecies I feel like have been self-fulfilled. I also just love the colors of this particular board. Then we get into my actual reading tracker, the bookshelf spread. This is a spread that I absolutely love the aesthetics of, and I like filling it out because as I go in and update my journal, I will put in the name of the book, and once I put the name of the book here, I know that I've added it to, if it needs to go into my 5-star spread, I know that I've added it there, so on and so forth. However, I will say this spread takes so stinking long to set up every year that I'm kind of contemplating doing something a little bit different, though I do definitely love the overall vibe of this one. I actually love the colors that I went with here. We have the little night sky with a little gold moon here. Like, she's so pretty to me, and I'm really glad that I did this one this year. Then we get into my books by month spread. I love having this little bar chart here that has the colors of all of the month that shows how many books I read in each month. It's very interesting to see, you know, April was not the hottest reading month for me. March kind of popped off. It looks like every 3 months or so, I really just had a reading renaissance, if you will. Like, I really just picked up the reading and a couple random months here and there. I think overall I stayed fairly consistent, but this is just an interesting view of statistics to have here. I have not filled out my December reading because obviously we're still like midway through December and I've not actually, honestly, I've not read very much in December. It's fine. Then we get into my book of the month spread. I'm also realizing, we'll talk about it here in a second, but I completely forgot that I read Project Hail Mary in August. So pretend that Project Hail Mary is here. I'm going to print off the cover for this spread whenever I do my 2026 things, and we'll circle back to that. However, I think it's so fun to see by months which books were my favorite. Then we get into my books by format spread. I don't necessarily love the particular stats that I tracked this year, but I like the way that I color coded all of the books in here. I do actually like, while it was so annoying to track before, I figured out that Goodreads actually has a pretty easy way to, if you look on the website version of Goodreads, to see how many pages you read in the month. I do think it's really interesting to see though how many pages I read each month, given that the number of books that I read in a month sometimes just depends on the number of pages that I read. So I think that was an interesting new stat that I brought into tracking this year. And then we get into genres. I think June, I kind of popped off with 5 genres, May with 4 genres, but for the most part, I stayed pretty much fantasy, fantasy romance, the odd thriller every now and then. And I don't necessarily anticipate that ever changing much. And then the number of books that I owned versus borrowed, I definitely have been borrowing quite a few books this year. And even of the books that I borrowed, a lot of them were books that I did already own. And then we have ebooks. Ebooks kind of did their thing this year, but then audiobooks. My guys, this is the year of audiobooks. I kind of wish it wasn't in some ways, but at the same time, here we are. Then we have the number of 5 stars. They're definitely concentrated in months. Like, I'll go months reading 2 3, 3, 2, and then zeros. Then we have new releases. This is a category that I really enjoy tracking. However, I stayed pretty low, and then all of a sudden in October I read a whole bunch of novellas, so I feel like that stat is a little inflated. However, this is definitely something that I want to continue tracking, given that I've had a hard time picking up new releases lately. I think I've just not given myself a lot of freedom in my time management to just randomly pick up new releases. And new release, I kind of changed my definition to be like within the last month or so, but that is, you know, I like how these 2 pages fit together. I'm definitely going to be taking these 2 pages side by side into 2026. Then we have my genre blanket. Okay, I started off really strong, and then I just decided that I wanted a smaller blanket than what I was making, and I decided to stop making my blanket because I never went back and remade it. However, I think this tracker was a really easy way for me to track things, especially because as I read books, I had a way to mark what color that book should be without having to also immediately do the blanket right then. So let's say at the end of, I don't know, a couple weeks, I wanted to pop in and crochet my blanket. I knew what colors were that I needed to crochet and what I had not already done, just because those boxes were not fully colored in, but I could go ahead and mark them and get them allocated whenever I did this spread. So I think that this functionally worked really well for me. Execution, we'll talk about it later. Then we get into my 25 in 2025. I absolutely love how this spread came out, and I also think because I liked how this spread came out with all of the book covers here, also it was kind of satisfying to see the 5x5 spread, but because I wanted to come in and keep looking at this page, this is undoubtedly the best I've ever done on one of these yearly lists. We ended up reading about half of them. I did not read 12 of them, which sounds like questionably kind of a lower number, but I also just had fun with this list this year. So this is definitely a list that I want to continue making for as long as I can, and I have fun going back in and checking off these books as I read them. There's going to be a certain point, and it may honestly be year after next, like 27 books is a little too much for me, but I think breaking them down into categories like I'm doing this year will be a fun way. So I just think that this is a fun project and something that I've done for many years now, which is just fun to circle back to. Then we have my 5-star spread. I really like how wide I made the little section header here because I had not a full page. However, something about the 5 stars that I gave in 2025, I feel like had if I were to reevaluate these, a lot of these I would no longer give 5 stars. A lot of these are just vibe 5 stars. They're not 6 stars for me. And I think that's something that I need to kind of consider moving forward, a 5-star versus an all-time favorite 6-star. I do truly kind of consider 6-star books a little differently in my head than something like a 5-star. So that's just kind of an interesting evaluation I have started to make in my head. However, actually having a spread for all of these is so much fun. It's so much fun to read a book that is just so good and then be able to go in and make a little picture of it and put it in your little reading journal. Like I feel like this is a fun page. Then we get into my anticipated releases. I feel like this was something that was decent enough for me to actually keep up with. I do next year want to trial doing a vertical column instead of this horizontal column. However, I think I've shown this like 3 separate times where I added this washi tape to this side and I was going to add it to the other side, and then I just never did it. So we have one lone piece of washi tape across these 2 pages, and it kills me every time I look at it. And honestly, at this point, it's just so funny that I'm not going to go fix it. Now my books hauled spread, this is something that's really good in theory, and I'm going to keep doing it. I just need to be better about actually updating it. I fell off the wagon a little bit. By a little bit, I mean a lot of it, but we had good intentions. Then we get into my series tracker. This is arguably one of my most favorite spreads, just because I feel like getting to track the progress in series, having a list of the next title in here, I just think all of that is so much fun. I love any extra little endorphin I can get when I check off a book, and if I can have another place to do it here, I love it. Also, I'm realizing we need to, is this the right color? I hope so. Something about this spread, I have like 3 tombos that are really similar in color, and I could never remember which one I actually used on this one. So I made this little tombow swatches in the very back of my journal, and oh my Lanta, this was the most handy freaking thing ever. Also, especially because this is not the right green. Hold. Okay. We have one update in particular. Actually, we have 2 updates here in particular I need to make. Number 1, Shadow Fever. I did fairly recently read, then rewind it back. I read it during the 24-hour readathon I did a couple months ago. And it's really cool to see how many series I have read. And also just to kind of keep a finger on the pulse of like, hey, maybe it's time to finish one of these series instead of picking up a new one. I did leave space for a third page in here that I didn't use, but I would rather have the space than not have it and need it and not have it. Then we get into a page that I really wish I had actually completed as I went. I tend to leave this page until the end of the year to go and fill out my most fun moments of the year that are kind of book related, whether they are quotes, events, things that I did, things that I learned, things I wanted to celebrate, things that were just fun that I wanted to remember. I have been kind of toying with the idea of taking these in my notes app and then putting on here. And the reason being, I didn't want to run out of space. So I'm going to play around with this. Maybe this is more of a monthly reflection kind of thing. But I do really like how the spread has come out in the past. This year just was not really my year for it, not gonna lie. Then I left some blank pages before we get into the monthly spreads. I left these for if I wanted to create any other lists, and then I just never came back to them. So I guess again, it was convenient to have those spreads, but like I didn't use them. Then we get into my monthly spreads. Some months came out significantly better than others. January was one of my more favorite months. I noticed when I had the books that kind of lined up like this, I tend to like those spreads more. I also, some months had better stickers, better placements for those stickers. Things just came out very differently each time. In January, I experimented though with doing one side that was wrap up and the other side that was like book club picks. This is just a reading recap for me at the end of the day, which is how I prefer it. So we definitely see some evolution happening. However, the stickers that I got from, I believe the shop is called Kunst on Etsy, I'll link them down below. I used them for all of the monthly spreads and I loved them. Then I was leaving space to come back and do a Legends of Thesmar spread, given that I finished the series in January, and I decided I was going to come back and do it when I read the second series being Ashes of Thesmar, and then I didn't do that this year, and then I never came back into this. So we're just gonna pretend that this is a very beautiful scrapbooky spread. Moving on, we have my Onyx Storm spread, which not my favorite spread, but was still fun. I do, however, really love that I actually have these photos of something that was really fun in the bookish world actually printed out in a scrapbook fashion. I just think the memory keeping element of it is so fun. Like I have my receipt for the book. I like not necessarily how the spread turned out, but the intention behind it. Then we get into my February spread. There's not really much to say about this spread. It was kind of boring, honestly. And also I realized the other day I did not mark down the dates that I read these books, which I definitely prefer to do. So I might add those later. However, moving on. However, in February, I was feeling really busy in February, which this year I did not have a separate calendar really other than like my calendar app on my phone. And I just needed a way to plan some things out, to brain dump things on some sticky notes and have a place for those sticky notes. And as part of this bullet journal set, it did come with some stickers that had the month and then the dates going down here. So it kind of let me do a future log style. And then I had space for brain dump, sticky notes, planning videos, throwing out TBR. This definitely changed every month, but it was just kind of a fun brain dump space. Then we get into some of my more exciting spreads. I started making spreads for the readathons that I was doing throughout the year, starting with Romantasy-a-thon. I printed off all of the little graphics, and then I put in here the particular books that I read for the prompts. Then I played around with doing a little vellum Dutch door in here. The way that Romantasy-a-thon worked this year, you read particular books leading up to a quote-unquote ball, and at the ball, based on the books that you read, certain things happened. So I printed off these certain things that happened at my particular Romantasy-a-thon ball, and I just think that the spread was so freaking fun. Then we get into some of the more craftier spreads, if you will, being that it was a spread for a craft outside of reading, being we did a crochet along for Mel's Patreon. A couple of us all did patterns from Sirdar, and I managed to, I'm like halfway through this blanket, but I like having a spot for my printed off crochet pattern to go. I don't have a separate crochet journal. I also liked knowing actually what yarn I used, what hook I was going to use, all of that information, because if it was a project like this where I put it down and pick it up after 6 months, it was just nice to have the materials listed somewhere and also an actual list somewhere where I would check off which row I had finished and had, you know, actual record keeping around my crocheting, which was actually really stinking helpful. This was a big fat win. Then we get into yet another spot for spreads that I actually ended up not using. However, this right here was going to be a spread for the Eden, so it was just going to be a half page, and this other page for the Wedge Collector. However, as it stands, this is just a very spoilery sticky note, and we move on. Then we get into my March spread. I freaking loved the little artsy stickers this time around. It was so much fun. Then we have another calendar spread for March that I ended up not really using, but I did appreciate the fact that I had a little brain dump space. Then we get into, reason I didn't use this calendar as much was because I was experimenting with having more calendar spaces. I had these little notepads from Target that I cut out and put onto this page, and then I ended up, you know, not using most of these, but I appreciate that I at least tried different variations of planning and actually having a calendar in my reading journal. Then we get into one of my more favorite spreads, which is Realmathon. I just loved how the spread came out. I like the fact that I have the record of what Realmathon was, what I read, but then just kind of a fun scrapbooky way to commemorate the time. My April spread is arguably my least, actually it's not, there's no argument, this is my least favorite monthly spread, but I think it also is because I didn't read as many books in April and I didn't really stagger these out in a fun way, and then I thought there was a whole bunch of extra blank space, so I just started doodling things. I like the concept of doodling things here. I just don't like the way that I arranged it, so we're moving on from April. I also did not use my little calendar spread for this month, but again, this is one of those spreads that was nice to have, didn't necessarily use it. And then we get into my little arc tracker. This was very stinking handy to have. I didn't read any of these arcs, so catch me making this exact same spread in my next journal so I can catch up. Then my 2 spreads that I made for Escape the Readathon, these were my favorite spreads out of this entire journal. I just think I got a little bit more creative. I used a little bit more mixed media in here. I made these little file folders for my TBR. I was on Team Detectives and we were getting through our files here. We were doing our research. I also think this little line here that's avoid, avoid, avoid. I tore some of the pages out of a mass market paperback I had out of the Fever series. I like the aesthetic of these pages here, but I also just think it was funny that of the pages, the random quote that I happened upon was that in Escape the Readathon. I just thought it was so funny. Then we have a page that I actually really liked because the texture on this scrapbook paper in here is very, very textured. But I just love all the little stickers. I love the shiny orange foil washi tape, and this was the first time I'd ever really used a really textured scrapbook paper along with this one in this month, and I just had fun playing around with scrapbook paper, honestly. Then my actual May spread, I just don't like how big these stickers are, but I love the flowers, so you kind of win some, you lose some here. My May calendar that I didn't really use with a little, actually postcard from a book event that some of my book club friends planned and hosted, and it just makes me smile to think of like how cool my friends are every time I see this. And also I kind of like the idea of incorporating more junk journal elements into my reading journals moving forward. Then we have my June spread. I actually really liked how this one came out because I actually read books in order of vlogs, and I could kind of put brackets around things that signified which vlog I read things in, and I just found that the way that I read books was visually very satisfying. Then we have another monthly brain dump that I didn't actually use, and then one of my alternate favorite spreads for the year was my Amazing Readathon spread because I cut out, I don't really know what this isn't technically a Dutch door, is it? I don't know. I cut the edges off of all of these papers and then made a little passport as we were traveling through the realms during our Amazing Readathon. I think there were like 8 prompts or something, but I was able to put the postcard, the prompt, and then any power-up cards I used for the readathon in that time. And again, just having one little page to scrapbook my time in each place was so fun. I also just thought that the graphics Brie created were so stinking cute that I wanted to keep them forever. The color on this one is actually just so fun to me, and I don't even like color. Like, I don't know what's wrong with me. I tend to like more neutral stuff, and then that is just so fun to me. And then I printed off a photo that had the prompts listed, which is very nice because this time next year I'm gonna completely forget what this readathon even was and how I participated, what any of this means. So having the actual prompts, a little bit of definition about the readathon, I think just helps. Then we have the spread for the War of Lost Hearts trilogy. I actually was recreating a spread that I made in my last year's bullet journal. Not gonna lie, I liked the last version than I did infinitely better. I kind of just gave up and stuck random paper here because I didn't have enough. I don't know, I don't like the way that this one came out, but I do like the way that these books were, and I like that I at least tried. Then we have the July spread. This one I actually liked a fair amount just because of the way I did the little doodles on this one again, but I liked the way that they kind of were shaped off of the stickers, and I arranged these a little bit better. I think that this is still not one of my absolute favorite spreads, but I think it's decent. We've got another calendar here, and then we have my July Miss spread. Every time I look at the spread, I get really just, I don't know, I like it a lot. I'm not the biggest yellow fan as a person, but for some reason this particular scrapbook paper I absolutely loved, and I played around for the first time putting vellum on top of scrapbook paper and then writing down each video that I posted in July Miss, which basically the week around my birthday, I posted a video every day for a week, and I thought it was just fun to kind of commemorate. I took a week off of work, just kind of hung around, celebrated my birthday, and did bookish things all week and just had fun. And I think the spread also just, I don't know, I think she's pretty. Then we get into a spread that I actually didn't do at all because I don't know what happened. Summer got really busy. I printed off covers with Cassidy, her booked for the summer bucket list, and then I was going to do a little checklist here with all the books that I actually read. I just got busy. I do really like the idea of doing a seasonal bucket list though. Like I think that's just very fun. And this is also another really favorite spread. I did a summer kind of, not necessarily a mood board, but I wanted to capture all of the fun things that I did over the summer. So I printed off a whole ton of photos and I kind of collaged them together. And then I found actually a couple days ago the ticket from when my sister took me to go watch the F1 movie for my birthday. So it's just kind of floating around in here. I'll probably tape this down at some point, but I think this was just a fun way to lean a little bit more into the memory keeping side of bullet journaling this year. Then I have this spread for my TBR scavenger hunt that I did. I read some of these books. I read, I think, technically over half of them because I read 4 of them. Did I read these when I actually did the scavenger hunt for my monthly TBR? No. However, I think this is fun. But I like the idea that I did a fun little game challenge-y kind of thing and then actually wrote it down. Then we have my August spread. We're starting to get to the point in the journal where we're over halfway through and it no longer opens on this side very well. My August spread, I like the way that it turned out. The exception here, however, I like the way that I staggered everything at first. Then I was going through my 5 stars of the year the other day and I was like, wait, we're missing something. We're missing something very important. You guys, I never put Project Hail Mary on my Goodreads. So when I make these spreads at the end of the month, I look at everything that's on Goodreads. I completely left it on. So I just taped in this little washi piece tape. I peeled off this poor little sticker that was previously right here. So, I mean, it's just, she's kind of hanging on for dear life a little bit. It's not even, but it's, you know, it is what it is. Deepest apologies, Edie Weir. I could never forget about you, truly. Then we've got another brain dumpy calendar spread. Then my September spread. This was the month of the Rebellion readathon. I printed off the board for the readathon and I folded it up and I put it in here. And then I put the little sticker that I ordered from Mel in here. But I absolutely love this little sticker pack that I use for September. I think it was just, it has a moon in it and I do love a moon. I don't know what it is about me and moons, but I'm into them. Then we get into the planning. September low-key was kind of a, moving on. I left a spread in here to do a fall vision board and then I never did it. Then we get into October and I think this one's fine. It's not my favorite spread. It's just, I kind of did it in a little bit of a hurry. I think I started the month off with a Tombow marker that was much too neon for this orange and it just threw me off and now we're here. We've got another calendar spread that I had but didn't use. Oh, hold. Actually, JK, I printed off the 2 book covers here that I was missing the other day, and then they're somewhere in the pile of 2026 bullet journal supplies. So just imagine that there's a picture of the Senator's Wife here, and that there is a picture of Alchemy of Secrets here. Those will be added later. But I liked the way in November that I had a fairly even amount of books, so I just put them on this side, and I put the stickers on this side, and then just did some really light colored doodles on the background here. Then we have a planning spread, which this is when I started to get real brain dumpy because I was starting to prep for BOOKMAS, and I, at that time, went ahead and made my December spread. Now, like I said earlier, we're in the middle of December. I make these spreads at the end of the month, so I have not made my December spread yet, but these will be the stickers that I'll use, and I'll just kind of throw in probably more similar to November, the number of books that I read on this side, and put the stickers in on this side. Then we get into the calendar spread. I thought that having a calendar in December was going to be a really good idea. I did literally all of my planning in the Notes app, so it made me feel better that this was here, so at least I guess that counts for something. I do, however, have a lot of like little bits and bobs that I would like to do a December junk journal spread at the very end of the month. You guys, I found it. Okay, hold on. I'm screaming. And by found it, I mean I only found one of the book covers I was looking for, but like Alchemy of Secrets, I'll come back for you later, buddy. Don't you worry. Low-key, that was a little crooked, but like you get the vibe. You get the vibe. But like I was talking about here, you guys will see in my 2026 bullet journal, when I printed out some of the things, Office Depot had these little stickers and I just thought they were so funny. The employee and I had a little joke about them, so I would like a place maybe after the very end to kind of do some December junk journaling, just because I have some stuff that I'd like to do. I don't know, we'll find out. However, we get into the BOOKMAS spreads. I will go back and fill in these post-its just because I think it'd be a fun memory thing, but like I didn't actually use these the way that I thought I would, but they're cute. They gave me a lot of joy, and I'd rather have them and not necessarily use them, but I have them and they brought me joy. Like if I'm getting joy out of the thing, I think it was still a win. So this is the first 4 videos. We have the second 4 videos, the last 4 videos. And then we have my actual scrapbooking spread, which apparently have not actually glued down yet because I ran out of glue tape. But just imagine that these are here and that this is my little BOOKMAS spread. This was just kind of a scrapbooky way for me to, again, similarly to how I did Julymas, I was just going to take notes on all of the videos that I posted and have them actually listed out somewhere in a like scrapbooky kind of cutesy way. I also really just love these little trees. It's just kind of a very ooh shiny page, and I just like the shininess of it all. Okay, thank you so much. Then a couple pages that I just left in here as extra if I wanted a gift list page and I didn't end up using any of that. I did, however, make a Fever series spread. Finally, I had an extra page that I tore out of my Fever series book that I was going to use to make another scrapbooky page, but then I really liked the particular scene that's on this book and I wanted to not get rid of them, so I just kind of tucked it in here for now. This is not my favorite spread I've ever done, but it was fun, and honestly, all I'm here for is the fun. I've got some random pages here in the back, like I was going to do a little crochet project spread. I'm ready to move on to 26, quite frankly. However, I did absolutely, I love this journal. I'm so thankful for all the memories that I had in this year, and having a way to actually document some of those memories was just a really fun, I don't know, very like emo, nostalgic-y, like heartfelt-y thing. And I'm usually not that kind of person. I usually literally could care less about the things that happened last week. But I think that this journal was just a really fun way to record a really fun year in a really pretty way. And like, honestly, I live for the aesthetic. Like, tell me that this is not the most satisfying, chunky thing you've ever seen in your entire life. Anyways, that is the end of my 2025 flip through. I hope you enjoyed this one, or maybe you got some ideas for your 2026 journal. Definitely stay tuned in the next couple of days for my 2026 spread, because I will be taking over a lot of these things, but I will be doing some things a little bit of a different way too. So thank you so much for watching this one. I hope you've been enjoying BOOKMAS so far. We only have a couple days left. I've had so much fun, but I'm definitely ready to start beginning to close out 2025 and move into 2026. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a fabulous day or night wherever you are, and I will catch you in the next BOOKMAS video.